So today I want to talk about a very deep philosophical question. The question is, do we really have free will? Are we the authors of our lives? Or are we just passengers on a train or on a plane watching things happen? To understand, we must separate ourselves from our brains. And I think I need you to keep that in mind as I continue on with this podcast. Imagine you're in a cafe. You're looking at a menu and there's chocolate cake and there's carrot cake. You stop and think and you pick the chocolate. Well, it feels like you made a free choice, decided that this is the one you wanted. But let's go a little deeper than that. Why chocolate? Was it because you love chocolate? Childhood comfort food? Was it because you didn't sleep well last night and your brain wanted sugar? Here's what scientists know. Our preferences are shaped by thousands of factors. Biology. Hormones like ghrelin, dopamine influence cravings. So we have that. Experience. If your parents celebrated birthdays with chocolate cake, it's in your memory bank, right? You celebrated all your birthdays and you've always chosen, right? Or your parents chose for you chocolate cake. Environment, like lights, and even music, right, can make you make a decision. A 2005 from University of Leicester showed that people bought more French wine when French music was playing in the store without noticing it. So, was that really your choice? Or did your brain direct you without telling you? Did your brain make the decision for you? This brings us to a powerful and controversial. This idea comes from Sam Harris, a neuroscientist and a philosopher. Argues that free will is an illusion. He says, we don't choose our thoughts, they just appear. Now let's talk about a famous study that supports this. The experiment is called the Libet experiment. So in the 1980, Benjamin Libet asked people to move their fingers while watching a clock. They had to say when they decided to move. So they had to tell the scientists they were going to make a choice. They were going to move their fingers. They used an EEG machine, which showed the brain scan. No, it's a brain scanning to check brain waves. The brain was already active. So they found that the brain was already active before the person felt they made the decision. Is to say, the brain waves showed that something was going to happen before the person actually wanted to do it. And the question is, how early? They say about 300 to 500 milliseconds before. That's less than a second. Okay. But enough to suggest something important. They determined your brain knows before you do. Now, there were later studies confirmed this. In 2008, scientists using an fMRI, a brain scanning machine, could predict up to 7 seconds before a person was aware of their decision. Now, there was also another study by Soon et al., Nature Science in 2008. They asked participants to press the button with either hand, both left and right. By watching their brain patterns, the computer could predict which hand they would use before they knew themselves. So the question fundamentally is, if your brain is ahead of you, are you really in control? Now, let me explain another idea before we continue with this. We're going to talk about determinism. Determinism says everything that happens, your thoughts and choices, happen because of something that came before it. Imagine a long row of dominoes, right? Each one knocks down the next. So one domino falls, the next one falls. In your life, the dominoes are your genes. Studies have shown up to 50% of personality traits may be inherited. So half of what you might become comes from your parents. Your upbringing, of course, the language you speak, and even whether your mother had stress during pregnancy. Crazy. A study published in Nature in 2003 found that MAOA genes, so these are genes, MAOA genes, something sometimes called the warrior gene, is linked to aggression. People with certain versions of this gene were more likely to act violently if they also had a traumatic child. In other words, biology plus experience equals behavior. You didn't choose your genes and you didn't choose your childhood. So how much are you really in charge is very, I know, it's deep, I'm telling you. Sam Harris says, even your desire to change is not something you created. Let me repeat that again. He says, this is a neuroscientist and philosopher. He says, your desire to change is not something you created. Even when you try to be better, that too was caused by something, your environment, your reading, your biology. Here's a thought. We'll do a little experiment here. Think of a time when you lost your temper, you got really angry, and you made a decision. What caused it? Were you in charge of that decision? Or your reaction part of the chain? Was it your reaction to the anger part of the decisions that you were making? Just keep that in the back here. Here's the big emotional question. If free will is an illusion, what happens to morality or to justice? Let's say two people commit the same crime. Person A grew up in an abusive home, had head trauma, and was never taught how to manage anger. Person B had loving parents, a good school, and no medical issues. Same crime, right? They did the same crime, different path. Should we treat them the same? Most people say no. And that's why Sam Harris doesn't say, let criminals go. He says, let's change why we punish. Not how we punish, but the why we punish. He says, instead of focusing on retribution or revenge, we should focus on protection, right? Keeping dangerous reputation, help people improve, and prevention, fix the causes before things go wrong. Since prison system does this, their goal is rehabilitation, not punishment. The result, the recidivism rate or repeat offenses is around 34%, while in the US, it's over 76% after 5 years. To say that in Sweden, 34% of people commit crimes again after being in prison. And in the US, it's 76% of people who already were in prison commit crimes again. That's incredible. Understanding behavior leads to better solutions. So let's go back. So I just gave you a lot of information, but the question still remains the same. Are we free to make decisions? Do we have free will? If we're not fully in control, does that mean we're just robots? Are we doomed? Are we doomed to follow our programming, right? Are we doomed by our genes? Are we doomed by where we grew up, our upbringing? Not exactly. Here's the key idea. You may not control the first thought, but you can form or shape the next one. Think of meditation. You can't stop your first thought from coming, but you can notice it, let it go, replace it. Or therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, teaches people how to recognize automatic thoughts and change them. Even your brain changes with effort. This is called neuroplasticity. A study from Harvard, 2005, showed that meditation changes brain structure. People had more gray matter in parts of the brain related to self-awareness and compassion. So yes, your brain has causes, but it's also very flexible, and your awareness is part of that system. Maybe we need to rethink what freedom means. Instead of I can choose anything, maybe I can learn what moves me and respond with wisdom. Let's say you realize when you eat when you're stressed, or you learn that it's not weakness, how your nervous system handles discomfort, or you build a new habit, walking, breathing, writing. It's not magic, but it's progress. Sam Harris himself said, understanding how mind works helps me live more peacefully and treat others with more patience. That might be the most meaningful kind. So, are we really free? Maybe not in the way we imagine. I'm not sure yet if I confirm to this. I'm just expressing this with you. We are not gods of our minds, but we are not helpless either. I agree with that notion. You might not control the first idea, but you can shape the following. So I've been meditating. Lately, I've been meditating for more than 2 weeks now, and I found it to be very useful. I follow Sam Harris, just to show some background. I follow him. I think he's a brilliant individual, the neuroscientist and philosopher. For the last 2 weeks, meditating, found myself to be a little more patient. My decisions, free will, I don't know. Are we really free? I like to believe that we are, but scientists are doing these experiments telling us that our brains are making decisions before we do. It's an interesting concept. That's why I thought I'd bring it. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think we're free? Do you believe we have free will? I don't know. I just thought I'd give it to you and you tell me what you think. I know this podcast is a little different than others, but I said, what the heck? I like the topic. I like the idea. I like to think. I hope this stimulated some thinking on your part. I'm Miguel, and this is what I learned today. Bye.